Yeah, what's up, everybody, and welcome in. This is FST. It's Fantasy Sports Today. My name's Matt Striker. His name is Joe Pisapia, and this is the place. Season-long fantasy managers, you're in the playoffs. God bless you. We're here. Let's get this thing going. DFS, there's still money on the table. Let's grab a little bit of that, too. Straight-up wagering, it's how we make our living. Quick reminder, at SportsGrid TV. Those are the social media handles. Make sure you're following along. Joey P, bringing you on in as fast as I possibly can, the author of the Fantasy Black Book. So much to talk about. And before we came on the air, I can tell you're warming up. You're already in a great mood. This is going to be a fantastic show, my friend. Let's get to it.
Yes, it's going to be a fantastic show. I got my Clark Griswold shirt on. We're celebrating the holidays. It's going to be a fun, old-fashioned Fantasy Sports Today Christmas. That's what it's going to be out there for everybody watching and listening. And it's week 16, which means it's round 2 of the playoffs. And if you're still alive in your playoffs, congratulations. We're getting very close to fantasy gold. The tough part has been this has been a week of change all over the place. Changing of quarterbacks, injuries taking guys out of commission, a lot of change happening this time of year. And we're going to get to all of it. And there was football yesterday. So not just college football playoffs, there was also fantasy football stuff going on, which makes it a really interesting week, right? Because you got games on Thursday and you got games on Saturday. It's like this slow burn all the way to Monday to see whether or not you're going to make it to the finals, which is pretty fascinating. It's kind of like torture, I guess, for some of us. But alas, 2 games yesterday, both home teams come out victorious. You had the Kansas City Chiefs fall behind, but you got to get up by a couple scores if you're going to beat Patrick Mahomes. Certainly a Herculean effort by Tank Dell. Unfortunately, a huge injury to certainly season-ending, but maybe even career-threatening injury too, which is something that you don't want to see. But Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs get another victory in this one at home. Good to see Hollywood Brown from a fantasy perspective. So he's still floating around your waiver wire because, nobody drafted him or had him. And you're like, I'll just pick him up, flop him on my roster, see what happens. He was active in this offense. So maybe, just maybe now with Hopkins, Brown, all healthy, maybe you get an opportunity to see a different version of the Chiefs the rest of the way. But I think the big story from yesterday is Lamar Jackson finally exercising the demons of always losing to the Steelers. And I talked about it Thursday. I got into an argument with some of my colleagues on Thursday about this because when you don't have George Pickens, you look at what this offense was. They are a bottom feeder offense, the Pittsburgh Steelers are, without George Pickens, especially with Russell Wilson playing quarterback. They're unable to get that 50-50 ball, unable to move in those big, chunk yardage situations. That's really what the Steelers need to do because running against the Baltimore Ravens is not a good idea. And Najee Harris just ran into a brick wall the whole time. But Lamar Jackson was terrific. Derrick Henry was terrific. The defense played very well, starting to turn a corner too, creating some turnovers, which is very important. So, the Steelers had it close there for a while, had them on the ropes, but eventually Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens were victorious. So now the question is, are the Ravens putting themselves back in that conversation to potentially win this division? Is it too little too late for the Ravens? Or do you think maybe the Steelers are cooling off and the Ravens are getting hot at the right time, Matt?
Well, that's 2 different questions here with regards to the Ravens' place within the AFC and winning the AFC. You and a lot of the nation got to truly watch the Chiefs and to watch that they were a special team. There's even an outcry against the officiating. Some feel that it's already a foregone conclusion. So I don't think anyone can take the AFC other than the Buffalo Bills if it's not the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think the Ravens showed something. They are that team that if something does happen to falter, and as I understand it, pardon me, if the Bills win today, the only way the Bills and Chiefs will meet in the postseason would be for the AFC Championship, if I believe that is correct. But if something should falter along the way, the Ravens need to be on their best footing in order to take advantage of that situation. Joe.
Yeah, maybe the Ravens need to be underdogs a little bit in the playoffs this time around. Maybe the hunter is better than being the hunted for a change for them. Also, I mentioned at the top the QB changes, so a lot of them, some by design, some by injuries, some by replacements, a whole lot going on. We're going to break down all of those a little while longer, but you're getting Mason Rudolph today for the Titans. You're getting Michael Penix Jr. making his debut for the Atlanta Falcons this weekend. You're getting Spencer Rattler back again. You're getting Dorian Thompson-Robinson over Winston for Cleveland. So those guys are going to make a lot of differences in somehow these offenses are going to roll with these new quarterbacks. And it should be, one of these spots where, once again, you're going to see guys pop up that you might not be thinking are fantasy relevant. So that happens a lot when you get these guys that work with the second team and they have a rapport with guys of the second team. You saw it last week with Strange and Mac Jones, right? All of a sudden, the guy's catching a ton of balls, and you're saying, where did this come from? Well, it came from the reps they're getting together in practice because those secondary quarterbacks are getting reps with the secondary guy. So keep an eye on that, especially in those DFS circles as well. So those guys are in. Alvin Kamara is out. So is Derek Carr. So the Saints, from an injury perspective, have really just taken it on the chin all year. So no Alvin Kamara. Tomorrow it's going to be a tough situation here for Rattler to go into Green Bay. It's going to be cold. It's going to be Green Bay. It's going to be without any weapons. It's going to be ugly. Get that Green Bay Packer defense if you can get it in your lineups wherever you can. Also looking ahead, speaking of injuries, the Lions. We're going to talk more about that too. The Lions up to 22 guys on the IR. Not good at all. And speaking of injuries, the 49ers, another running back here today, gone tomorrow. So Garendo now unavailable as well. You thought that the Madden curse was just for Christian McCaffrey. No. It's for every San Francisco running back. And if I asked you, Matt Striker, who has more rushing yards, Brock Purdy or Christian McCaffrey this year for the 49ers, even in limited time, I bet you wouldn't say Brock Purdy, but that's the case. Look at this. This is the tail of the tape. So Jordan Mason, 789 on the season on the rushing yard total. Garendo, 381. Brock Purdy, 285. McCaffrey had 202. Then you got Debo and Patrick Taylor Jr. bringing up the rear. They went out and they went after Abanikanda, trying to get some depth at that running back position. So they have a matchup against the Dolphins today. But, you know, if you know anything about football historically, and I know you and I watched a lot of Shanahan's be head coaches in the league, pretty much any running back in a Shanahan offense somehow finds a way to be productive. Even go back to those Denver Bronco days, right, with his dad and now Kyle with all these other running backs, whether it be Mason being productive or Garendo being productive. It is the system, after all, even though McCaffrey is great. So today's a big matchup here for the 49ers, kind of a last-ditch effort to stay relevant. What do you think they do today against the Miami Dolphins, who have some injuries of their own with Jalen Waddle out today?
I think they play football. I mean, I think that's what you're alluding to, right? It really doesn't matter who's back there as long as they possess the explosive athletic ability to exercise the position and to make the plays happen in the way that they should. That, to me, works. I mean, I don't think it's just the Shanahans. I think it's just good football coaching. You see it with the Chiefs, too, right? There was a particular point where their running back position had questions, and now it's seeming to normalize, but it's really more about the position. But what that graphic shows me that you showed there, having those, a half a dozen different guys with double digits, is that maybe before the season, if you looked at McCaffrey versus the field, or you look at these type of systems within these teams, start to look at the field, because I think the league is starting to move that way. I think they move the football as best as they possibly can today. There are injuries on the other side. It's just one of those games that, again, if you're up and you're up big, then sure, you go ahead and throw money. But as a wagerer, and this is a wagering show at the end of the day, there's nothing attractive there for me. There's nothing where I'm going, oh, I want to get in there. I'm much more invested in, say, this Bills game and trying to put something together with Cook to try to find better odds. But that's just how it is at this point, Joe.
You know, going back to yesterday too, Matt, Derrick Henry, incredible performance, 24 carries, 162. He also had 2 receptions for 27 yards. But then Lamar Jackson also throwing his franchise record, 35th, 36th, and 37th passing touchdown. I mean, an incredible effort from him getting back potentially into this conversation here for MVP. And Lamar's mama yelled at him a couple weeks ago before the bye that he was missing out some opportunities to run the football. And ever since, you know, they had that bye, they've come out, they've won 2 games. So maybe Miss Jackson, after all, is the one that you have to worry about. You know, maybe she's the motivating factor. You know, I don't know where she was when some of those games they were losing to the Eagles. Maybe she should have popped out a little earlier. But a great performance yesterday by Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. And I think important mentally, too, because the Steelers were that team that has really kept Lamar down. I had a lot of questions. People ask me, do I start Lamar against the Steelers? And, of course, I said yes. There's no way you can sit guys like Lamar Jackson when you get to the fantasy playoffs. He's the MVP of the league in the last couple of years. He is incredible. He is a dynamic player on the ground, throwing the football. You know, and for people early in his career that wanted to call him a running back, I think they can shut up right about now. When we come back, we'll talk about the booms of Week 16. Don't go anywhere. FSG is getting started.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia, where we discuss what inspires young children to do the things they do when they grow up to be an adult. Well, I'll tell you something. Winning and happiness certainly do. That's certainly inspiring. Everyone remembers this as a youngster, one of the first few moments where you're happy. Oh, I remember this time, that time. I'd like to revisit that a lot. I like to recreate that, especially as an adult. Let's do that. It's time now for the fantasy booms, the players that are going to make us feel happy, like, dare I say, a kid on a summer morning. How about that? I used to love summer mornings. Did I miss something there? Did I miss it? Did I miss an opportunity? No. Okay, Joe. Fantasy booms. I did. Okay. You ready to go here? Is it okay? Is it okay for me? Are you ready to start?
It's okay. It's okay to be everything. It's fine. It's good. It's also fine for Joe Burrow. That's where we're going to start today for the fantasy booms. We're going to start with Joe Burrow, who had a knee issue. He had a wrist issue. But he's off all the injury reports, so everything is fine. Everything is just fine. You know, it's like what your mother tells you, even though she's crying in the kitchen during the holiday meal preparations. Because it's fine. Everything's fine. That's what Joe Burrow. Everything's fine. But
you are grim.
It's like that episode of The Bear, right? You ever see? I know Matt doesn't watch a lot of TV, but the people out there, you know what I'm talking about. That episode of The Bear is amazing. The one, the Christmas. Oh my God, so good. Anyway, Joe Burrow won't be throwing any forks today. He'll be throwing touchdown passes. That's where he's going to be. Now, the only problem here is if they get up to so much that they really have to take their foot off the gas in the second half. If Dorian Thompson-Robinson on the other side doesn't play well at all, then we could have a little bit of an issue. But you have to love what he's been doing the last couple of weeks, too. Yeah. He has just been so consistent. He's got 6 consecutive finishes in the top 10 of fantasy. He's ranked as the QB3 this week in the expert consensus rankings. It's a good matchup against the Cleveland Browns. They're at home. He's got Chase Brown looking really good. Jamar Chase looking like he's going to get paid. It's been a really good situation here down the stretch for Joe Burrow. If this team had only gotten some sort of defense at some point, who knows where the Bengals would be. But I would not be shocked, you know, depending on how this season does wrap up for them, if they do make a change of coach, even though maybe it's not the best idea. I think Joe Brady, you know, who has a relationship with Joe Burrow, could be the next coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. But regardless, whoever the coach is next year, they have to remake this defense. They have to do something else here. They can't keep chasing their tail. 1 year it's the offensive line. They fix that. Then they go fix the defense. Then they need to fix the defense the next year. Like, you need to have a complete team going in if you're going to compete with teams like the Baltimore Ravens in your division, with teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers in your division. You know you have to be ready to rock. And the Bengals, from a Ross perspective, just weren't. So we'll see how things go for them in this game today. But I think certainly you're looking at Joe Burrow as a guy who can get you into those fantasy finals in a week from now.
All right, let's hope, fingers crossed. Let's move on now to the part here where I'm most intrigued because I'm actually ready to push the button on a nice wager, waiting to hear from Joey P. James Cook. I mean, every single week, every time, if you're lucky enough to watch this football team play, James Cook is doing something that is either fantasy relevant or wagering beneficial. James Cook today against New England, you had mentioned before the show, and I laughed that New England doesn't tackle. Well, that's a big part of football, Joe. Mm-hmm. So pick it up from there. What's going to happen?
It is. The Patriots are 29th in the NFL in DVOA versus the run, but they're not good. They don't tackle. It's going to be cold. James Cook coming off two out of the last 3 games going over 100 yards. Now, I know it was a dud in between with the Rams, but that game became a really weird shootout. So there is a little up and down here from James Cook. But if you're looking at the game script for today, it looks really good for James Cook. Not just the matchup I talked about and the Patriots, the other side of the football, who struggle against the run, but also you imagine the Buffalo Bills are in control of this game. And if you are, you're running the football and you're running James Cook and you're trying to get out of here with a W and get Josh Allen to the next week here of more important games. So they play the New England Patriots twice here. It's like it's brutal enough a way to end the season here for the Patriots fans. You got to play the Bills a couple times. It is absolutely horrible. But James Cook has an opportunity today. You're seeing mostly in the mid-60s for his rushing prop. I think he could go way over that. I think he could get to 100. So this is an interesting ladder bet. We'll talk about that more in the second half of the show today. But Cook is in a really good position here today. Again, game script going his way, matchup going his way, everything going his way. Certainly everything for the Buffalo Bills going their way after last week.
Yeah. So let me ask you quickly, I can ladder Cook, I can anytime touchdown Cook. Can I add something like Allen 200 or more yards through the air to really boost the odds for me? Yes.
See, that's dangerous because, the Allen mark will be a pretty high one. So if you're writing the game script, that means there's challenge in there from Drake May and the Patriots. Now, Drake May has done a pretty good job. He just doesn't have a lot to work with. So I just don't know if they can keep pace the way, say, a Matthew Stafford with a Puka Nacua can keep pace, or a Jared Goff with Amon-Ra St. Brown can. Drake May doesn't have those guys to keep pace with Josh Allen. So if you're going to stick with Cook, get that tunnel vision for Cook and just write that script instead.
I love it. That's the insight you're not going to get anywhere else. Love it, Joey, man. Nah, but it's a great answer. It's right there on the fly. Let's continue to go here. Brian Thomas Jr. has Las Vegas. What do you see here for Jacksonville?
The leading receiver for all rookies in terms of yards right now is Brian Thomas Jr., folks. Nobody saw that coming, I bet. With the Malik Neighbors and this guy and that guy. Well, it's been BTJ. Raiders are a good matchup. Mac Jones made him useful last week, so why can't we go 2 weeks in a row? We absolutely can. He's a wide receiver, 16 in fantasy points per game, 9th in deep targets, and I think the big concern everybody had is, what's he going to do with Mac Jones? Well, 8 for 86 2 weeks ago, 10 for 105 last week. Apparently he's going to be good. He has had 3 straight weeks of double-digit targets, so I'm playing him. And then another guy we got to talk about as well is Mike Evans. Now, there's incentives here for Mike Evans to come away with a big day. He is wide receiver 4 right now, ranked in the expert consensus rankings on Fantasy Pros. He is chasing another 1,000-yard season. He's at 749 with a few games left to play here. We've got week 16, 17, 18 here ahead of us. Can we get to that mark? It would be incredible. Certainly, a Hall of Fame caliber career for Mike Evans, one that I think snuck up on a lot of people at the end of the day. A few weeks ago, that record kind of felt like it was possibly out of range, but now it's definitely possible. He has to average 103.5 receiving yards, and if there's anybody's going to try to force him the football, it's going to be Baker Mayfield. The matchup against the Dallas Cowboys is a very good one too. Dallas Cowboys 6th most receiving yards to opposing wideouts this year, and in a way, too, a bit of a homecoming for him. He's a native Texan, we're fighting, here to stay ahead of the division. A lot of important things here going on for Mike Evans today. So look for Evans, Baker Mayfield to be a duo that is going to certainly try to connect over and over again. This is where you might want to force the number, although it is high already. It's over 90. Very little value. When we come back, I'll look at the new QBs, what they might do in week 16.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why?
Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia with you here. Now, folks, I'm from a time before cell phones robbed us of flashbulbs going off in a stadium right before an iconic moment, or when you'd call someone, you'd actually get a prompt, and it would go, do, do, do. The number you have reached, it would give you the number, has been disconnected. Please check the number and try again. This is what we have to go through as children, folks. But now you kids are saying new number, who dis? And that is the name of this segment. So there was my transition, Joe. Look, you asked a 50-year-old white guy with blue eyes to get you there, and I did the best. But do you remember the busy signal? Do you remember the dial tone? Do you remember all these things before the device changed the way we live and the way we speak? But right now, getting a new number, that if Seinfeld was still around, they'd make that episode. Remember when Elaine gets to 646? Make the episode where some Kramer gets a new number and disappears into the abyss, completely off the map. I like it. But this is a new QB who dis, and basically what it is all the new quarterbacks here. So, Joe, pick up what I have just splashed everywhere, almost like
I like I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a whole meme segment out there of updated Seinfeld things. You know, one of them is like Jerry's girlfriend wants to use his Amazon Prime account, and he's not ready for that kind of commitment. One is like a cell phone thing. It's like we're on the group plan, all of us together on the group plan, all four of them, and of course the chaos that creates. So, you know what?
So great.
Neurosis never goes out of style, Matt, no matter what.
No.
I think that's where it is. Also, never goes out of style is switching quarterbacks when things aren't working. Look at that. There's a professional transition, kind of, sort of. Michael Penix Jr., the Washington man, is going to take over a quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. The Kirk Cousins experiment is over. It's done. So there's cautious optimism. He gets the New York Giants. They're at home against the Giants. And just for perspective, too, well, the Giants have not been very good since week 10. The Giants have allowed the 7th most yards per attempt, the 2nd highest passer rating, and the 12th highest CPOE. Across their last 5 games, the secondary has really been gutted by some injuries, too. So there's opportunity here, especially for the deep ball. I would say when you're approaching wagering with Michael Penix, you're looking for a couple things. Number one, you're looking for the over on the rushing yards because he's a more mobile quarterback, and chances are, for a start, he's going to get out there and run a little bit because especially the adrenaline is going to be pumping, and I don't know if Vegas is quite ready for the mobility of Michael Penix, especially compared to Mr. Kirk Cousins. But also the deep ball. Darnell Mooney would be that guy for me. So I know Mooney was disappointing last week, and a lot of people might not be in their playoffs anymore thanks to the Darnell Mooney performance. However, Darnell Mooney, deep ball today. Look for the longest reception for him look for the longest reception for Penix, maybe some overs there, and then maybe also the total receiving yards of Mooney as well. Because if you get that 23, 28-yard reception, all of a sudden a 50 mark is much more achievable for Darnell Mooney. So the susceptibility to the deep pass, that's where you attack the Giants. That's where Penix is good. And if you watch Penix in college, I was a guy that really liked him. You know, a lefty quarterback, so it looks a little different. You're not used to it as much. He is a guy that is not afraid to take shots downfield. He is a guy that is, I sound like Chris Collinsworth. Here's a guy that's going to take some shots downfield. My God, he's going to go out there and he's going to look good doing it, man. I'm telling you. But he is. He's a very fearless gunslinging type of quarterback. And I like that. He's got the stones to go out there and make some big throws. And that's something that Atlanta Falcons, I think at this point, desperately need here, something to shake up this offense. Mason Rudolph also taking over. Now, this isn't new, but with all the injuries we've had to quarterback and Superflex in the last couple of weeks and all the replacements too, all of a sudden there's a lot more. I'm starting him in a league this week. I'm starting Mason Rudolph as my second QB. I'm hoping I can get 15 against the Colts. I think you can. I think you know what you're getting from Mason Rudolph. And yes, we're going to make the annual, it's December, Mason Rudolph is here to lead your fantasy team, blah, blah, blah. All the jokes aside, the Colts defense is not very good. And I think when you're looking around here, you have NWI is going to play today. You have Calvin Ridley. You have some weapons here. Tajay Spears is healthy enough to play too. So all of a sudden, I think Mason Rudolph is a startable guy if you are really up against it. And some of us are in these Superflex leagues at this point. So that's another guy that you can stream today. Now, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, another one too, where you don't have a large sample size. You know, same thing with Penix, like really small. A guy who showed some flashes in college, but against the Cincinnati Bengals, it's tempting because the defense is so bad on that side. However, I think the caution is, once again, as teams are trying to go through this evaluation process, what do we have? It's a hard sell for me with DTR to start him. Rudolph, I would play with his nose so bright. I would absolutely play Michael Penix. It's fun. Why not at this point? You don't have a Derek Carr. You don't have Jameis Winston. You got to have somebody. DTR is the guy that I want to really wait and see. But let's see how the Falcons look afterwards. Maybe they were geniuses all along for taking Penix where they did after taking all that heat during the NFL draft. Why did they take Penix? Well, maybe we'll find out today. The DFS slate when we return on FST. We'll be right back.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all, because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
what's up, everybody? Welcome back into DFS Fantasy Sports Today segment. That's how we do it, because we talk about browning our butter during the break, and it got me excited, so I lost my train of thought. Joe said he's going to make cookies. He said he's got to make cookies today. I said, Joe, you brown your butter. The music starts playing. Cool Hand Luke's in my ear. He's like, back in 3, 2, 1. I know we're going to the DFS segment. That's what you get, folks. Listen, if you're not having a good time and you can't laugh at life, and I don't know what to tell you, Joe, it is time for the DFS segment. Joe will brown the butter for a certain batch of his cookies. Oh, dear Lord, help me. Joe,
do you brown
DFS,
the butter for the chocolate chip cookies? That's the question. I think we need to have this conversation.
Okay, then let's have
because you do.
We'll open it up to social media.
So you brown the butter for your chocolate chip cookies before.
To making the cookies, the most important and vital step to making the cookies is browning the butter. In my experience, I have ruined so many cookies. I have a soon-to-be 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. Thank you, God. I've made so many cookies browning the butter. It takes time. You have to have patience. You have to wait. Even when you think it's there, it's not there. Wait for it to actually brown. It smells nutty. It's fantastic. But I promise you, Joe, if you have the patience, and I think you do, those cookies will be worth it. All right, with that said, it is time for Week 16 DFS plays. What other show is doing this? I have no idea. There's a reason. It's time to look into, but all kidding aside, when we talk about the position where we start and the prices, that's what really helps, because we discuss each and every game in depth with game scripts from Joe. He talks about all the potential outcomes. I like to take a lot of my wagering stuff from this segment. So I'm going to be quiet. Here we go, Joe. It's time for the running back position. Saquon Barkley starts at 9,100. I'll leave it in your lap from there. Let's go.
Next segment, we come back. We can talk about gingerbread. Saquon Barkley at the top, 9,100, 87 for Bijan Robinson. They get Chase Brown at 82. So, look, these are the high-priced guys. Look, Barkley's got a pretty good matchup here against Washington, in-division matchup. So, we typically like those. It's in Washington. I don't really fear the Commanders' defense all that much, even though they are improved. It'll be interesting to see what Commanders' team shows up today, because I don't think this is the same Commanders team that necessarily the Eagles saw a few weeks back, and vice versa too. I think this Eagles defense is a little bit better and playing better as well. So that should be an intriguing matchup. Bijan, you imagine, is going to get a lot of work today, but we just don't know what Penix is going to do. Are we going to see a lot of dump offs to Bijan? Are we going to see a lot of just Bijan period in this game against the Giants? Probably. So it's a fine investment, but 8,200, I think what's interesting to me is Chase Brown, because the one thing you've seen with Chase Brown is he's getting that all-purpose work too. He's catching the football a lot. He's been very consistent there. T. Higgins has not been healthy this week. So I think, when you're looking at matchups, you're looking at situations, you're looking at the 3-down back. I think Chase Brown is that sweet spot of value that's going to save you about $1,000 from Barkley, and that's a big discount. Rico Dowdle has a good matchup too. It's another guy who's bell cowing this weekend, and it's almost like a bye week today, right? Because you had 3 games happen already. You got another game happening tomorrow. So basically, it's like a bunch of teams are on a bye. So it's a really interesting week and a lot less choices, especially with all the injuries we've had at running back over the last week and a half or so. Chuba Hubbard at 7,100. I would look for a bounce back from him today against the Arizona Cardinals. And Rashad White and Bucky Irving, another 2 guys, too, that I'd be looking for. I think either of those guys are going to get a lot of work. Bucky Irving especially has been really good. Rashad White, 7K. Maybe we'll get some more receptions. Both will get some goal line work, too, which you've seen just in different ways that offense runs. However, don't discount either of them. I think both are very useful. Would I play them both in the same lineup? Probably not, especially with the concept of Mike Evans, being that guy that's going to get the football a ton today, which we talked about earlier and all the reasons why. So maybe just pick one, do a lineup with Irving and Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans, and then flip it around too and put Rashad White and do another one that way. So a couple different approaches there with that backfield. But that's the running back slate in a nutshell too. Not a lot of deep guys in terms of players that are in that 6 or even 5,000 that we want to stream this week. Just you might have to get to that cushy middle for running back in DFS for week 16.
All right, we have to be smart and savvy with our salary, and you're the guy with which to do it. So let's go to the wide receiver position. Jamar Chase, 9,500. Justin Jefferson, 9 even. And then the guy that the more you talk about him, the more it's like, we're really lucky that we get to see some of these players in our lifetime. Mike Evans, 8,800. I think Mike Evans deserves a round of applause, man. Just what a great career. But there's the number, 8,800. Is that the relief we need, or we need to go lower?
It's certainly going to be very chalky too. That's the only combination. Sure. Is expensive and it's going to be highly rostered. And right off the bat, that's difficult. So the way in these now in cash, maybe not wrong, right? But in the tournaments, I think it's really interesting in maybe you fading Mike Evans or at least having a Mike Evans lineup and then looking elsewhere, looking to Brian Thomas Jr., a guy that I still think most people are not in on because of Mac Jones. Well, look, Mac Jones against the Raiders is not the hardest matchup in the world. That team is looking for plane rides. There's no Max Crosby to worry about sacking Mac Jones right now. So it's a little bit easier of a road. And I mentioned before, 3 straight weeks of double-digit targets. The volume's there, the touchdown equity's there, everything's there for BTJ. Jordan Addison, also a guy getting a lot of touchdown opportunities, got a matchup against the Seattle Seahawks today. And then Khalil Shakir working out of the slot against the New England Patriots. Christian Gonzalez probably going to go with Amari Cooper would be our guest today. And then Shakir is going to be at 6,600, another cheap option. So Thomas, Addison, Shakir, a really good cost-effective grouping of wide receivers where you can probably go down at running back a little bit, maybe take a shot at one of these younger quarterbacks who are playing today, get your points and get out. But I think when you're looking at Mike Evans today, it's very complicated. It's hard not to have a Mike Evans lineup, but I think having too much exposure to Mike Evans might not be the path to the top. So again, just think about that. Think about your approach. Try not to be too Evans heavy because I do think that roster percentage is going to be way over 50. I really do.
All right, as it should be, though. Now, let me ask you this. If you consider that roster percentage going to the quarterback position, Josh Allen's at 9,400. What's his roster percentage going to be? Jalen Hurts at 8,600, and then Joe Burrow at 83. Go ahead.
I think it's going to be less than you realize, only because you want Josh Allen when it's a competitive offense on the other side. You want him against the Rams. Right. You want him in the game. You're going to pay up for him against Detroit like last week. I just don't know how much – they can get up by 20 and then just coast the rest of this game and hand the ball off to James Cook a lot. This could be a very 21-10, maybe even underwhelming where the Buffalo Bills are just in control. Now, the one thing I will say is the defense has been a bit of a sieve the last couple of weeks. I mean, they get up 90 points in the last 2 weeks. That's a lot of points. So can Drake May and the Patriots put up points against them? Maybe. My confidence level is not nearly as high as Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford the last 2 weeks. So I think that's where you get into trouble with Josh Allen at that cost. Jalen Hurts at 8,600. We know he's got touchdown equity. The health of A.J. Brown was in question going into this week. We'll update everybody on the injuries in an hour or two. Joe Burrow, we talked about 8,300. I think that is a really good sweet spot if you want to pay up for a quarterback, $1,000 less than Josh Allen. Sam Darnold not getting enough credit. I mean, really, and the Seattle Seahawks taking a step back last week. And then you got Stafford, cold weather against the New York Jets. Interesting spot. I don't think he's going to be highly rostered, but I have a hard time believing that the Rams can't go in there. I mean, this is at 3 at most markets. I had this game at 4.5 on the side of the Rams, so I think there's value there. And I think when you're looking at Stafford, there's value as well. They smell playoffs, and I don't know if you want to take too much out of what you saw to Aaron Rodgers the last 2 weeks in Florida. He played back-to-back weeks in good weather in Florida. Now it's going to be 20 degrees. You and I are in our 40s. We know when it's cold outside. We don't even want to go outside. So you might see a different Aaron Rodgers this week than we saw the last couple of weeks down in sunny Florida.
Yeah, you're very nice to me, but I think I'm closer to getting down to sunny Florida than you are with regards to being in our air quote 40s. All right, with the final minute that we have left, let's go to a guy that is a long way from his 40s, and he will be telling his grandkids all about it. Brock Bowers. My, oh gosh, what a season. 7,700, the number there. George Kittle, remember him? He comes behind at 7,500. Then Trey McBride at 7,500. Jonnu Smith at 7 even. Joe, where do we go?
Yeah, I look, Brock Bowers, tremendous. High salary, though, too. Not a lot of touchdown equity. Could this be the Trey McBride touchdown week? Finally, 7,500. Why not? Right? I mean, the Carolina Panthers give up a ton of points to tight end, so maybe they're finally the one to give Trey McBride a touchdown. But go bet the first touchdown on Trey McBride or even 2 touchdowns on Trey McBride. What do you have to lose at this point? I mean, time is on your side right now. Laporte at 6K, Jonnu Smith at 7K, that's the one to watch. And if you want to take a flyer on Kyle Pitts, because rookie quarterbacks tend to check down a lot to tight ends, that could be an interesting one as well. So that's the DFS slate. When we come back, we're going to take a peek behind the numbers. We'll tell you which one will return.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Road management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST, Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia giving you everything you need in order to dominate. It's time now for FST by the numbers. And this is a great segment that we've been doing this season. Joe, each and every time you dive into a particular stat, it really helps us. I find a lot of us during the break, we rush to our devices, rush to our phones, we start placing our wagers. So let's get into it. You got some good stuff here with regards to rookie quarterbacks. You got some stuff going on with Lamar Jackson, some head coaching stats. What do we have? Let's go by the numbers.
Well, we're going to start with Jaden Daniels. And if you dial back to August when we were doing our preview shows, we talked about Jaden Daniels is Rookie of the Year. It was plus 600, plus 650 in a lot of markets. That's where we liked it. Caleb Williams was at the very top. We saw Marvin Harrison Jr. in between. And it's still Jaden Daniels to lose at this point. So we've been pretty good pillar to post on that one. And it's had a great season here for Jaden Daniels. And he looks like he's healthy again. Finally, these last few weeks, I think there was some question there with that rib cage injury, how healthy he was. But if you look at the last 3 weeks, he's finished as QB1, QB2, QB7 over the last 3 weeks, coming off the bye last week. A little bit of struggle bus at times against New Orleans, but I think that's because they absolutely have their eyes set on Philadelphia today. They know how important this game is. This game is a measuring stick now to see how good are we and how good do we have to get to beat the Eagles next year, because I don't think the Giants are going to be competitive next year all of a sudden. And they look like a team that's going to be changing over a lot of things. And the Cowboys could be a team also changing over a lot of things. So the Washington Commanders are in a good spot here. And the Eagles are definitely that big brother right now, at least for the time being. But how good has he been? Well, let's take a look at the numbers. If you look at rookie QBs with 3,000 passing yards in their rookie season and 500 rushing yards, it's a short list. It's all guys from the last 20 years. It's Jaden Daniels. It's Cam Newton. It's Robert Griffin III and Kyler Murray. So often when you have rushing quarterbacks, you don't always have prolific passing. There's still 3 weeks left in the season here for Jaden Daniels to pad a lot of these numbers. We know Cam Newton was an NFL MVP, led the Panthers to a 15-1 season, to a Super Bowl. Robert Griffin III was the one that really popped to me here on this list. And I know you're a Commanders fan, Matt Striker. I know back in the day you liked your Art Monks and your Gary Clarks and all those fellas. But when you're looking at the career of Robert Griffin III, it begs to wonder what he would have done in this version of the NFL just a few years later, where the quarterback is really protected. The game has changed significantly in terms of the way they game plan and the rushing quarterbacks and this sort of ability that Robert Griffin had. I wonder if he would have had a more prolific career had he been drafted, say, in 2021, as opposed to when he actually did get drafted. What do you think?
more of a what if than a bust, right? Or you got the Todd Marinoviches of the world, but it's not the same conversation. But you get what I'm saying? So I think it's more of a what if kind of thing. But to this point, the game has completely changed. And again, to bring it all back to wagering, how we wager on these games has completely changed. Joe, you and I are from a time as a kid. Remember when Randall Cunningham came on the scene? Remember Donovan? Remember this kind of, it changed a lot of things. So we have to change the way we wager based off of the direction of the game. Not just one little, candle, I call it, not just one little point up to the top there, but trying to find the real way the game is going. So I would look at, so you have this Daniels thing, pivot, give me something else, maybe like a Joe Burrow stat, something to where I know what I'm getting. And that to me is a very wagerable thing. So that's a great stat, but the way I wager on Jaden Daniels, the way I wager on this new type of quarterback, it's still very tenuous. And I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, they might. It's just interesting because, Robert Griffin, body type wise, a lot more like a Lamar Jackson build. And Donovan McNabb, some of those other, more mobile quarterbacks, a little bit bigger, a little thicker guys, they, withstand a little bit of the abuse they got. It's just so different now. The protection level of the quarterback, which is good for the game overall, but it would have been really good for the game of Robert Griffin III also. Joe Burrow, who you mentioned, is having a really good season. Too bad the Bengals aren't. But if you're looking for perspective of the run that Joe Burrow's been on his last 6 games, he's had 250 more passing yards and 3+ passing touchdowns in all 3. The only other player to do that on this kind of a run for 6 straight games, well, it's the GOAT. It's Tommy Brady. That's right. So about as good as you can play, that's where Joe Burrow is. Unfortunately, the Cincinnati Bengals still find themselves with a losing record. And at a certain point, you are going to have a divide. Something's got to give. Maybe it's the coach, or maybe just maybe Joe Burrow is going to start to look like he wants to play elsewhere. I don't think that's going to happen quite yet. He is an Ohio kid after all. I think he's going to stay put in Cincinnati, but something's got to change here. A couple years ago, they were in the Super Bowl, 1 play away from winning it. Now they're basically not even competing for the division. That's a big drop off in a 3-year span. Something's got to give. Something's got to change here for Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm starting to feel like something just might year over year. So keep a close eye on this one in the offseason. And today, again, this run he's been on so good, I think we're going to get another spectacular performance from him today.
All right. And I'm sensing a trend. Do we have yet another quarterback? What do we have?
We do. Going into this weekend's action, Lamar Jackson has 5 career games with 5+ passing touchdowns and 5 or fewer incompletions. No other quarterback in NFL history has any more than 3 of those games. So if you're still talking about, Lamar Jackson's a glorified running back playing a quarterback position, then you ain't watching football. You are not watching Lamar Jackson. And then what he went out and did yesterday, I don't know, but that's what he sounds like. And Lamar Jackson has been absolutely spectacular this year. Any doubters, any haters, there's nothing to say anymore. He continues to evolve and get better every single year. And it seems like it's nearly impossible for that to happen, yet every single year he does it. So Lamar, shout out to you. And we'll see you in the playoffs, Mr. Jackson.
All right. With the time that we have left, do you have one more for us?
I do. Mike McDaniel, when he was hired, I thought was a very curious one. He's fun. He's a good press conference, good interview, all that stuff. But I was like, this guy's not serious, right? Are we really serious with this guy? Is this our head coach? And I thought it was going to only end in one or two ways. It was either going to be incredible, he was going to go to the Super Bowl, or it was going to end in disaster. And it's starting to feel like maybe the latter. And when you look at the record against teams with good records and bad records, it's staggering. With Mike McDaniel as head coach, the Dolphins are 3-15 against teams with a record of 500 or better. That is ridiculous. I mean, you can't beat any team that's over 500. What is happening? Now, the interesting thing is you're getting a team that's under 500 here with the San Francisco 49ers this week. Okay, that's fine. Are they a good team? Probably better than the Dolphins. Probably on paper. I know they've had a ton of injuries, but still, I think coaching-wise, system-wise, a little bit better. So Mike McDaniel, another guy that could be on the hot seat. I know injuries have been a problem, but at a certain point, you got to start beating some teams that are good. When we come back, speaking of injuries, talk about the Lions in the return.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back into FST. It's Fantasy Sports Today. Matt Striker and Joe Pisapia giving you everything you need in order to dominate. And of course, at SportsGrid TV, those are social media handles. Keep the conversation going. We love hearing from you. On the other side, we're going to be taking some start-sit questions, so stick around for that. But right now, Joey P., the author of the Fantasy Black Book, you know those writer types. They're super smart. They're into like information and stuff. It's time to do a deep dive into these here Lions, but it's not what you would expect. What do you have?
Well, health is a big part of success in the NFL. You need talent, you need coaching, you need systems, but you also need health. One of the healthiest teams in the NFL last year was the San Francisco 49ers, and they got all the way to the Super Bowl. How's the health been to the 49ers this year? Not great, right? How's the record? Not great, right? Well, despite the fact that they've had a ton of injuries, you have the Detroit Lions still winning football games, except for last week, where they lost even more guys. And if you look at the rest of the NFL, and this is from Tyler Webb on the interwebs over there on the Twitter machine, great job by him giving you a chart of what the injury toll looks like for the NFL. You see a lot of teams in that 10 to 13 range of players on the IR or the PUP list or just out, right? That makes a lot of sense. That's about average, right? Look at the team all the way at the top. 22 guys, and you just lost David Montgomery for the rest of the season here. Maybe getting back for the playoffs at some point. That's a big maybe. 22. It's a huge number. It's deeply concerning for me when I'm looking at the Detroit Lions because it feels like a team that might have peaked early. You know this, and I know this, Matt. We've been watching sports a long time. You get teams that dominate the regular season, but they just don't quite have that mojo to finish. And then you get those teams that get hot late and become extremely dangerous. Well, the Bills are getting hot late here. They've got a cake schedule. They got the Patriots 2 of the last 3 weeks here. They just won a huge game in Detroit. It seems like Josh Allen's going to win the MVP no matter how many touchdowns Lamar Jackson throws. But who's on the bottom of that list there with the least amount of guys hurt? It's the Buffalo Bills. So despite the fact that the defense keeps giving up a lot of points, it's the health of the Buffalo Bills, too, that's been key to their success this year. So you look at some of the other teams in this grouping also. You see, the Minnesota Vikings. You see the Green Bay Packers. You see the Denver Broncos, right? All at the bottom. You'll see the Philadelphia Eagles, the playoff team, the Washington Commanders, playoff team, Baltimore, again, the Rams. There's a theme here, which is health matters in the NFL. And I'm going to ask you this too. Are you getting a little nervous, a little shaky maybe perhaps about the Detroit Lions trying to finish this in the playoffs, especially when you consider some of the bad decisions that Dan Campbell is making in big spots time and time again? what did he kick an onside kicks for with no surprise, with 12 minutes left to go at home in a quarter in the game? I don't understand that at all. But you couple that with the injuries, I'm starting to get a little skittish about the Lions finishing this thing with a Super Bowl victory. Your thoughts?
No, you have an absolutely fantastic point about it, because when you look at their road to even getting there, you see that the Eagles are standing in the way, and then you can make a case for maybe one or two other teams. And the AFC also really seems like there's just a handful of teams there. But yeah, Lions fans, here's the thing with what this team's been able to do. As far as the injuries go, I think we started the hour talking about how it's really about football more so than it is about the personnel. Actually, we did. We were talking with the 49ers, how they have, I think it was 9 players with over double-digit yards carry this season because of all the injuries. So I wouldn't sweat it so much. The football in Detroit, it was what works. The football in Detroit is upon what we bet. So I think that's the most important thing. But yeah, it could be a tough haul at the end of the day, especially if they get there. They would have to do it against the Chiefs. They would have to do it against the Bills. And if all falters, they would have to do it against the Ravens. So either way, it's just going to be fantastic down the line, Joe.
Look, as somebody who had a lot of preseason stuff on the Lions and Chiefs and the Lions winning the Super Bowl and all this kind of stuff, I got to say, I'm not really feeling it as much here. And Dan Campbell's a big reason why. I'm going to use a big word here this early in the morning. Egregious. It's one thing when back in the day you could surprise somebody with an onside kick. Now you can't. Everybody's got to be told it's an onside kick. Everybody knows now because of the new kickoff rules. So everyone's ready and prepared for it. You want to catch somebody napping, okay, maybe that's fun. But if you can't win a game at home with 12 minutes left, down by a certain amount here where it's really still within your range to win, down by 10, I mean, come on. Down by 10 with 12 minutes left, you can't get one stop. I know you had a lot of injuries on defense. I get it. Josh Allen's playing out of his mind. But to me, it's a guy that did not learn from the mistakes and the sins of last year in the playoffs when he was in San Francisco, making bad decisions then. Look, stuff you get away with a fourth down on bad teams, you know, these weird things where he's just going for it and being super aggressive. Guess what? It doesn't always work, and it doesn't work against good teams, and it doesn't work against good teams in close games. Dan Campbell, I think, is just as much of a liability right now as the health is of the Detroit Lions. And I, for one, am getting, I said, a little worried about their ability to finish this thing at the end of the day. All those people complaining about the Chiefs, guess what? Chiefs look like a stronger team right now. Period. Hour 2 of FST. More hot takes right after this.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all, because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Road management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.